And we're back in the Gunners Club again. How good's that?
We are, Susie, here with Gunner and, of course, with Suze. Now, how are you at home?
Hey? Well, I don't know how they are, but I'm rather well. We're having a limo.
Do you know, I find this almost ridiculous. We're talking about the economics of the state of Victoria, but this could be the economics of wherever you live in the decadent West. Let me tell you why. When I was a kid, I was given pocket money. I didn't really have to do that much for it. I think I washed the dishes twice on the week or something like that. I was given a little matchbox. And inside the matchbox were some 5, 10, 20 cent pieces. And I learnt about the basic concepts of money. Right? I was taught that there's the local shop. If you go there and buy a chocolate frog, you're going to have 15 cents less than what you've got at the moment. Now, this has got to keep you, the money in this matchbox, for the week. I mean, in reality, it probably lasted about 2 days. The man at the local shop got sick of me coming in and coming out buying chocolate frogs. But how hard is it, even as a kid, to set a budget and to understand what a budget is?
As a kid...
And that's a great analogy, isn't it? Because these people, these treasurers, these economic experts that we have elected, what are they doing? How hard is it to set a budget? You start off with an idea. You do a projection as to what you expect the income to be. And then you have a look at what your outgoings will be. And you do the costings for your outgoings. And at the end, you should have enough money left to live on. And put a little bit aside so that the next week you can start to save for something that you want, like a bicycle, let's say.
Yep.
Let's say a train line, for example. Well, it seems to me that that's a concept that the Victorian state government's been having quite some trouble with. Now, I've had to read between the lines of their budget. There's a deficit this year of $2.2 billion. It's hidden by the fact that they're boasting of a cash surplus. But actually, if you have a look at income to expenses, there is a deficit of $2.2 billion. Now, the debt is going so high that around 2027-28, we will be at a level as what we were in the 90s. Do you remember that period of great recession in Victoria?
Unfortunately, yes, I do. Okay,
so we're borrowing huge amounts of money, and in part, go back to some of our previous videos about living under Danistan. I'm very pleased we're not longer under the Dan Andrews government, but his government effectively continues in power.
That's right.
Now, this government borrowed a lot of money as a result of COVID. You know what it's like when you're in the doctor's office and you have someone tap on your knee with a tiny doctor's hammer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now imagine if your little shank was hit with a sledgehammer, like the one you'd use to erect a circus tent. Because that's what the government's reaction was, effectively, to COVID. We were locked up for longer than any other people on Earth, until at the very last moment we were pipped by China. But we were under lock and key for a very, very long time. What that meant is that the state government had to kickstart the economy, had to protect us from the crisis, effectively, that they created economically, and go ahead with a lot of infrastructure builds. Now, a lot of this was costed at times where there was a surplus of labour. The labour market was very loose. The cost of borrowing money was very low.
Well, it was near on 0% at the time, without any thought whatsoever that there's even the slightest possibility that the interest rates could rise.
Things might change. That's right. And now we're at 4.35%. effectively as the cash rate, and then of course there's all the margins, etc. on top of that. Now, I believe that living here in Victoria, we are born under the yoke of debt. We're born under the yoke of debt. I say this because for every man, woman and child and tourist backpacker in this state at the moment, when I talk about child, I'm talking about children who are seeing the first sunset. I'm including them in the numbers. Your state debt is about $26,500 per person in Victoria.
Yep.
You want to add to that another $33,500 per person in Australia for federal government debt. That, my friend, means if you are living in Melbourne, where 75% of Victorians are, you have got $60,000 of debt to your name just by the federal and state government's tax. Now, of course, it's not enough that we have 2 levels of government. Let's have a 3rd level of government. And let's call that local government.
Yep.
Okay? Why have they got debt? I don't quite understand. But the council that I live in has got, and I read through the balance sheets, I am an accountant, $77 million of interest-bearing debt, not including the leases. But, you know, the argument is that we should have a fourth level of government as well, a United Nations government or something, and create further taxes with things like carbon offset schemes and things like that for us. Let's ignore the local council, although the debt is there. Let's ignore the impost of a further government, $60,000 debt per person. Now, what are we getting for the money?
Oh my God. Decreased living standards is what we're getting.
What I'm seeing is a lot of infrastructure plans which are on the table and not a lot of them being actually delivered. Now, I know that you worked in a past life as a cab driver for a short spell.
Yes, much to my regret.
Well, I remember you telling me a story about a person who was trying to hold you up in the cab with a knife.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Yeah.
How did that go for the chap with the knife?
Well, I basically made him a proposition he can't refuse, a la The Godfather.
The Godfather?
Yeah. We were travelling down the freeway at, I don't know, close to 100 k's an hour. And I basically told him, well, I really don't care. I let go of the steering wheel and I kept accelerating. I said, until you drop your knife, I don't grab the steering wheel. And he very quickly came to an understanding that this is probably not a course of action that I should have followed with this particular person.
And that is a great analogy, and it could have even been on the way to the airport. Now, the airport from Melbourne, it's 22 kilometres away. We're now the biggest city in Australia, the biggest city on the continent. You'd think we would deserve a freeway. Sorry, not just a freeway, but actually a train line that goes that way. This was first tabled before State Parliament in 1964.
That's right.
1964. We didn't even have decimal currency then.
No, that's right. And it's still on the drawing board.
And then Dan Andrews, many years ago, pasted on Facebook that something great was happening and that a rail line was in the works and was happening for Victorians.
Yep.
That never happened. We're looking at this being delayed to, 2000 and mid to late 2030s, if it ever happens at all. Now, look, it's not just the fact that these schemes are taking so long to occur, but that does annoy me. I spoke to someone yesterday who's involved with, you know, they're not directly involved, but they're employed in the structure of the Westgate Freeway. I took the Westgate Freeway yesterday and again to get to you today, Suze. Yeah. Still not done. Now, this thing was started before COVID.
Yes.
And I was assured by the person I was talking to, oh, no, don't worry, it's all in hand. And
it'll be done by 2024.
Well, I was assured we'll have cars on it by the end of 2025.
Okay.
Now, this is, to me, is an absolute scandal. I mean, it's not just the fact that it's been blown out in time. It's the fact that it's blowing out in cost as well. And it's not enough that things are blowing out in cost. Look, some of these things. Airport Rail has been delayed by 4 years. Westgate Tunnel, delayed by at least 3 years. The Alfred Hospital upgrade, at least 4 years. The Liberal opposition says that there's been a $40.4 billion blowout across major projects. $40.4 billion blowout.
I'm trying to figure out how we lost our minds about the $1.2 billion that Dan Andrews threw out to the winds on the freeway extension that we didn't build because the contract wasn't worth the paper it was written on. We lost our minds over $1.2 billion of what a waste.
And here we've got a reported $40.4 billion blowout. And let's, mention as well things like the Commonwealth Games.
Oh my God.
Which we won, but are unable to hold.
There was another close, a little over $500 million.
Yeah. Cancelled projects, redevelopment of Royal Melbourne and Royal Women Hospital. Well, why would you want to redevelop hospitals, really? It's only for the citizens. I've been involved in the costings of projects before in a professional life. What you need to do is to understand what drives costs before you sign off on the bottom line and any cent is actually delivered. Because I tell you why. The government doesn't operate outside of the people. It operates for the people, and everything they do affects us. If they employ somebody It means that the labour market is more competitive for a private company to get the skills of that person, and the costs of that person effectively go up. If they're borrowing money on the market for a project, it means that money will be costed higher for somebody else to use it. They're effectively competing against the private ventures, who, I would argue, on these figures can do things more efficiently, more effectively, and actually deliver them. You're going to say what you reckon?
It's probably not a good idea on YouTube. I'll get demonetised.
Folks, I think we deserve better. I think in part you've let us down, though, Victorian voters, because the state government was returned with increased numbers, which I think is absolutely shocking. I just want to say to you, scratch the numbers with your thumbnail. Have a look what's going on. Have a look at the projects which haven't been delivered. Have a look at things like, for example, the suburban rail loop, which still has been uncosted. Uncosted.
But worse than that, the federal government has put aside a little over $9 billion towards the project because they feel that it's a worthwhile project. However, who are the people, what's their name, the infrastructure people that oversee these things? They said, yeah, look, we've got this $9 billion because we reckon this is a worthwhile project. We want you to go ahead with it, but we want you to give us the paperwork which gives us a feasibility study and
I mean, the Auditor General's Department is looking for the costings and to understand that.
And to give us the, what's the benefits and the return that we're going to get for this $9 billion once this project is finished. Over 2 years now, our state government has refused to pass on the paperwork which will basically open the door for them to receive this $9 billion because they know it doesn't stack up.
I've got to say again, with costings, what's so important with costings is you understand the drivers of the costs. You can understand the revenue and the benefit as well, because everything which is on the budget at the moment is proclaimed as an investment. Government doesn't spend anymore.
No.
It seems that every cent that they give out for something is an investment.
Yep.
You've got to actually work out what the benefits are for the citizens, if you can deliver it on time, what the costs will be, what the ramifications will be for the private enterprise if you do it. But not only that, when you're doing a contract, the people who you're contracting with have got to be held to account for it. So that economically they're dependent on that contract. It can't be a cost plus margin project, meaning that if the cost for delivering this to the contractor goes up from 5 billion to 10 billion, and don't laugh because the cost overruns have been like that.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that they get double that amount of money plus the margin. It shouldn't work that way. It's your money. It's our money. I am cross. I am cross at the way that we've been treated as Victorians.
It's not so much how we're being treated as Victorians. I'm cross. No, I'm not. I'm pissed off at the fact that people that are supposed to be in these positions of power, making these decisions, are not educated enough to be able to understand how a contract works or to be able to negotiate a contract favourable to us as the people.
Do you remember how we started? And we're going to finish off exactly that way. What is a budget? And go back to the old matchbox full of the 5 and 10 and 20 cent pieces. Have a look at it, draw up the budget.
You know what the fundamental problem is? Is that these politicians, these people in power, they don't care about the money because it's not their money. If they were financially invested in it, if they had to have a share in it and put their hand in their pocket for it, I bet you they would operate a completely different way.
Wouldn't it be interesting if their income was shares in a Victorian economy, where what they're effectively doing is leaving us with a deficit of 25% of the GSP. Thanks for joining us again on Sociology. We're not normally this angry, but when it comes to life in Victoria, believe me, I bloody well am. We talk about a lot of different industries. We talk about basically society.
We talk about whatever you guys want to hear because we're just like that.
Join us for more adventures.
Catch you on the next one.